Welcome to the Iowa blog. I am your host, Craig Wynn. This will be episode 21 of Qatsyr Harvest as we explore everything that can be known about the prior, upcoming, and future harvests that Yahweh has in store for us. You see, Yahweh laid out a plan from our world to his that we can follow so long as we know when these things will transpire, when the events were fulfilled, if you will, or will be fulfilled, who is responsible for either orchestrating them, speaking of future events, or having fulfilled them in the past, what each of these dates represent, how they were and where they were communicated to us, and what things we must do if we want to participate in them. So it's really a lot of material that we're trying to convey. And this volume, which is volume 5 of the Yada Yahweh series, it's called Qatsyr Harvest. It's a long volume, some 850 pages of amplified translations, commentary, and insights regarding the three harvests. So let me frame a few of these issues before we jump back into the text where we were previously. First of all, to participate in any one of these 7 Moed Mikre, which represent the steps home, we must engage in Yahweh's Bereth covenant. The Bereth covenant is a family agreement that requires both of the parties to adhere to certain conditions. On our part, if we wish to participate in it, there are 5 instructive conditions of this covenant. We do not have the opportunity to negotiate and say, I want a special dispensation. This is God's family. He set the rules. We either accept them or we reject them, or we can be oblivious to them, but you cannot change them. And Yahweh is likewise bound by the benefits. There are 5 benefits of this covenant, and he is committed to providing all of them. 5 is interesting in that there are 5 fingers on our hands, 2 sets of hands, 5 benefits, 5 considerations, 5 requirements to participate. Each of them has the opposing the thumb, if you will, which is the one that is the most important among the 5. And just to tie this all together, there are actually 5 hands in Yahweh's name. The first letter of Yahweh's name, the Yod, is a arm coming down and reaching out to us. So upper arm coming down, forearm reaching out with an open hand. That is the Yod as it was drawn in Paleo-Hebrew, the language that the Torah was initially written. Then there are 2 men standing up, reaching up to God, pointing up to God. Since Yahud is a compound of Yahweh's name and also of Dod's name, Yahud is the word for which we get Jew. It means beloved of Yah. So recognizing that we have Dod's name literally integrated into the name of the children of Yisrael, then it is relatively easy to deduce that Dod is one of those 2 individuals that is standing up, reaching up, pointing up to God. In the Paleo-Hebrew, those would be the 2 Hays. It is likely that Yada is the other, in the sense that right from the beginning, Yahweh presents Dod and Yada as the sun and the moon. The sun, the most brilliant source of light on our planet. The moon reflects the sun's light, which is the job that Yahweh has been assigned as Dod's herald to reflect the brilliance of the sun. So we have a greater light and a lesser light, and therefore it is first and foremost Dod, and secondarily Yada being the other, being representing the 2 people in Yahweh's name. And with all of this known, 5 is the key number. So with the covenant, The 5 conditions of the covenant are as follows. First, we must do as um, Abraham did, as Sarah did, as Moshe had done, as Dode had done, as I did, which is before you can even begin to approach Yahweh, before you can even have any opportunity to get to know him, before he will reach out to you and offer an invitation to meet with him, you first have to walk away from the family of man. The family of man is badly fractured. You study any one of the lives of those that Yahweh has spoken through, and you'll immediately recognize that they experience horrible family situations. And Moshe, both his sister and his brother rebelled against him. In the case of Dode, his son led a revolution against him, a coup d'etat. And in my case, my sons have not exactly been supportive of the mission that Yahweh has asked me to fulfill on behalf of his people. And so this is just the nature of it. God wants us to have empathy so that we're in a position where we understand what he's had to endure, because there is no more shattered family than the children of Israel are from their father, Yahweh, which is why in Hosea, Yahweh specifically asks his prophet to marry a temple prostitute. And the reason for that is that when temple prostitutes are religious and they cheat on the family covenant relationship, old Hosea is going to have some empathy for what Yahweh's had to endure and the irascible nature of his wayward children for so long. So the first thing we must do is we must sever our relationships with the family of man so that we can be part of Yahweh's covenant family. This also includes, since Abraham and Sarah were in Ur of the Chaldeans, which would be Babylon, they had walked away from Babylon. And Babylon is the place where religion and politics were first intertwined. Babel means to confound by intermixing, to confuse by commingling. And so you must walk away from Babylon, from religion and politics, if you wish to be in Yahweh's family. That's a bit ironic, I guess, isn't it? Since all religions claim that they provide entree to God, and yet what we're have to recognize when you realize the narrative that Yahweh established with Abraham is that unless you first walk away from Babel, from this commingling of religion and politics, and from any religious or political influence, you have no access to God. There are no religious and no political people in heaven. The very things that men think and women think endear them to God actually sever any possibility of them having a relationship with God. So we first walk away from the culture of man, the community of man, if you will, the family of man, Babel, the commingling of religion and politics, and indeed from our country. And that's not a matter of geography, it's a matter of attitude. So this is how we respond to politics and religion in our heart and our heads. Have we left it behind mentally, attitudinally? It's not a matter of doing what I did and cruising, a quarter of the way around the world to say, well, I'm no longer in the continental United States. So that's the first condition of the covenant. It is the thumb, if you will. It's the prerequisite. Nothing happens until we do that. The second condition of the covenant is that we walk to Yahweh and allow him to perfect us. There's only one path, and this is what integrates the Moed Mikre and the conditions of the covenant together, is the Moed Mikre, the invitations to be called out and meet with God, this opportunity to be part of the restoring witness of the eternal testimony and attend these meetings. There are 7 of them, and the first 3 enable us to receive these initial benefits of the covenant. So Yahweh says, you must walk to me and become perfect. The first step along the way is the doorway called Pesach, Passover, and it is the doorway to life. And so the first step in accomplishing the second requirement of the covenant is to celebrate Passover. You can't celebrate Passover unless you're a member of the covenant. So we will continue to talk about that in a moment, but understand that it's the second step along the way as the second condition of the covenant in the second Moed Mikre, matzah, that accomplishes this particular objective, where we walk to God and allow him to perfect us, because on matzah, David, the Son of God, took our guilt, carried it into Sheol for our benefit, depositing it there, never to be seen again. This makes us appear perfect in God's eyes because there is no evidence, no guilt associated with us. The third day on the Moed Mikre, which we'll speak to in the moment, enables us to be part of God's family. So we have the first condition: walk away from the family of man, from your country, from religion and politics. The second condition is to walk to me and become perfect. And we do this through the Moed Mikre, showing the integration between the two. The third is to trust and rely upon Yahweh. Now, this is a very different concept than most people are familiar with, because in religion, one puts their faith in the religious God or the religious prophets or whatever they may call themselves. But there is no knowing, there is no trusting, there is no relying, because none of the religions can be validated. They all are, in fact, can be very easily invalidated. It's the reason I've written 13 books invalidating Rabbinic Judaism, invalidating Christianity, and of course, invalidating Islam. And so when something is untrue, as those religions all are, the only thing that you can do is believe in that which is unbelievable, but nonetheless, that's the nature of religion. In God's case, he proves his existence through prophecy. He provided so many precise predictions of what would occur, then when they have occurred, we can go back to the written testimony and validate that it was memorialized in writing long before its fulfillment took place, demonstrating over and over again that Yahweh knew our future in our past, thereby validating the credibility of his testimony and proving his existence. So in this case, since God can be known, we are in a position, based upon knowledge, to trust him and to rely upon him. And if you're not in a position where you know Yahweh, you know his name, you know his son, you know what Father and Son accomplished, you understand this covenant that he is offering, you understand how he made it possible through the Moed Mikre. If you do not know these things, if you do not know that God chose Yisrael and Yehudim as his people, then you're really not in a position to trust and rely upon him. And that's one of the reasons that, in addition to those 13 books proving who God is not, I have written another 20 of them demonstrating precisely who God is and providing you with more than enough information for you to know God exceedingly well and even understand who he is and what he's offering, so that you're put in a position that with this knowledge you can trust and rely upon him. It's also the reason we're doing so many of these Yahweh blogs. You know, there's probably 120 of them now that I have offered to you. And by the time we're done, there'll be well over 1,000 hours of these. Because just by listening to these programs, you're going to know who Yahweh is and what he is offering us and what he expects in return, so that you can put yourself in a position that once you stop relying on religion, once you stop relying on politics, once you stop relying on your military and patriotism or conspiracy or whatever it may be that you put your faith in, once you renounce that and you come to know Yahweh, you'll be in a position to do something that is so much better than believing. And that's to trust and rely. I'm asked all the time, so what do you believe? And I said, nothing. Why would I want to believe anything? I know that, for example, that there was no Jesus Christ and that Christianity is nothing but a pile of lies. I know, for example, that Rabbi Akiba was wrong about everything, as was Maimonides, and that the Talmud is trash, and that Rabbinic Judaism is nothing but an excuse for rabbis to rule over Jews and to fleece them. I know that Muhammad was the worst man who ever lived, and Allah was not a god. I know these things. I don't believe these things. I am absolutely certain of them, and I have proven them. Likewise, I have done the work and done the investigation through these 35 books filled with amplified translations and commentary to prove without any doubt whatsoever that Yahweh exists, that he is God, and that he inspired the Torah, prophets, and Psalms. So I don't have beliefs. I either know or I don't know. And on these important topics relative to who God is and who he is not, no one knows these things better than I do. In fact, no one in all of human history knows them as well as I do. If you're going to spend time listening to someone share information about who God is and who he is not, you have found the right place. So that would be the third condition of the covenant, to trust and rely on Yahweh, which requires knowledge. The fourth also requires knowledge, which is to closely examine and carefully consider the instructive terms and conditions of this covenant agreement. And for you to do that, of course, you need to know what they are, and you need to know how they are achieved. You need to study the Torah, prophets, and Psalms, or at least read what I have written about them in these books, or if you would prefer, listen to these programs, as I have devoted many to explaining precisely what the terms and conditions of the covenant are, just as I'm explaining them to you now. Yahweh wants you to closely examine and to consider them so that you're in a position to make an informed decision. The fifth condition of the covenant is that as a man, you must be circumcised. And we as parents are asked to circumcise our sons on the 8th day. If you are a man and you are not circumcised, you cannot be part of the covenant. And if you're not circumcised, you cannot participate in Passover, which means there's no life beyond this one. Yahweh was not negotiable. That is the sign of the covenant. He has many reasons, and I've done many hours of audio programs and written books about why circumcision is the sign of the covenant. And it is Yahweh's decision. I happen to think he made a good one. And you are not in a position, again, to negotiate with him. And you can't say, oh, well, I can't believe that there was some 80-year-old guy that decided he wanted to be part of the covenant and he wasn't circumcised as a youth, that God would keep him out of the covenant just because he wasn't circumcised. Well, I'm here to tell you, your opinion don't mean shit. Literally, it doesn't mean crap. God does not care what you think. And your hypothetical applies to somebody else. And the likelihood there's an 80-year-old guy in that condition is nil. So stuff it. I'm sorry. Just stuff it. If you want to be part of the covenant and you're a man, I don't care how old you are, you're going to be circumcised or you're not going to be part of God's family. Simple. I didn't make the rules. He did, and he's not changing them for you. All right. Now that you know the 5 conditions of the covenant, there are 5 benefits. Those 5 benefits are also provided through the Moed Mikra. In fact, the same 3 Moed Mikra that I've already mentioned. The 5 benefits of the covenant: from Passover, we become immortal. From matzah, we become perfect in God's eyes. Therefore, we're able to exist in his presence. You'll notice I'm not using the word saved, because there is no need to save anyone whose guilt has been expunged, never to be seen again. Being saved is a religious concept. Number 3 is that we're adopted into Yahweh's covenant family. This happens on Bikurim. And then as a result of Bikurim, and then as a result of Shavuah, God enriches and empowers us. It is a tenfold enriching and empowerment. enlightenment and enablement as part of Bokurim, and twice a tenfold and incremental. So it's 10 times 10 squared, if you will, as we come to Shavuot, because on Shavuot, God's children are actually transformed from material beings to energy-based beings. So it is 10 to the second power squared, if you will, is really the math of it based upon Yahweh's instructions in this regard. And so those are the 5 benefits of the covenant. We are become immortal. Life goes on forever. We're perfected, so we look perfect in God's eyes. Our guilt is expunged. All God sees in us is the good in us. Number 3, we're adopted into God's family. Number 4, we are enriched and empowered by him. So those are the conditions of the covenant. Those are the benefits of the covenant. The other essential elements of this, of course, is understanding then this path that we must walk to Yahweh if we want to be part of his family. And that path is 7 steps long. Pesach, Matzah, and Bokurim were the first 3. These 3 were fulfilled by David, God's son, the Messiah, in his second of 3 lives. It's why he was anointed 3 times. It's why Yahweh claims that Dod is my son, I am his father, on 3 occasions. Dod in year 4000 Yah, which is 1,000 years after he volunteered for this mission. And so he volunteered for the mission in 3000 Yah. He fulfilled this mission in year 4000 Yah. 4000 Yah is 33 CE. Dod told us exactly when he was going to arrive. He made it very clear that when he was in Babel visiting with Daniel, yes, Dod visited with Daniel in Babylon. When you read Gabriel, Daniel is very clear. Gabriel is a man. Even the title says he's a man. It's from Gabar, which is a mortal man. And Gabor El would mean the most courageous and capable man of God. That individual, according to God, is Dod David again. And so Dod David is the one who met with Daniel. He is the Messiah and Son of God. And so when he spoke in prophetically to Daniel, he was speaking of what he himself would do. Just as in the 22nd and 88th Mizmor, which Dod wrote in first person 1,000 years before he would fulfill Pesach and Matzah and Bokurim, he wrote a first person eyewitness account as a prophet of precisely what he would endure and presented the benefits thereof. And in Babylon, in the 7th century BCE, Dod told Daniel, and therefore us, because he wrote it down, the exact day that he would arrive to fulfill Pesach, Matzah, and Bokurim. And it's right in the midst of Chag Matzah in 33 CE. This enables us to date the fulfillment of Pesach, Matzah, and Bokurim in year 4000 Yah, 233 CE. And we know that we can go back 40 Yobel to Abraham, who was the one through whom this narrative of the conditions and benefits of the covenant were revealed, and recognize that he and Yishak affirmed this entire experience where they went up Mount Moriah, the same mountain where Dod would fulfill Pesach, Matzah, and Bokurim, and performed a dress rehearsal for Pesach on Mount Moriah, exactly 40 Yobel, 2,000 years to the day that Dod was there to do it. 1968 BCE. We can even go back 40 Yobel from that to 3968 BC, and that's the day that Chava and Adam were escorted out of the garden. And if we go 40 Yobel from 33 CE, which is 2,000 years, we end up at 2033, which will be year 6,000 Yah. This is the time that Yahweh will arrive with Dod to fulfill the last 3 Moed Mikre. So Dod fulfilled Chag Matzah, Pesach, Matzah, and Bokurim, making us perfect, immortal, and adopted children who are enriched and empowered in God's family. in 33 CE, year 4000 Yah, fulfilling Pesach, Matzah, and Bakodim. Those are the first three steps that we walk to God. The programs, of which this is now the 21st episode of Qatsyr Harvest, are devoted to explaining how one participates, when one participates, and what the benefits would be and what the obligations are to be part of the Shabuah harvest. We can date the Shabuah harvest because it is called sevens. Dode, when he was speaking with Daniel, explicitly said that this time of Jacob's troubles and the covenant with many that is so destructive to Israel would be established 7 years before he returns. And this day is called 7 sevens, Shabuah, and it therefore will transpire on a Shabuah, obviously, on a Shabbat, obviously, 7 years, obviously, before year 6000 Yah, when Yahweh and Dode return, which we now know is 2033. Therefore, Shabuah, and this covenant with many that is so destructive to Yisrael, that begins the time of Jacob's troubles, is a Shabbat of May 22nd, 2026. That is when this harvest will transpire. The purpose of the harvest is to bring the covenant family to Yahweh and to remove them from the time of exceeding pain and aggravation, an uproar of anti-Semitism and an onslaught of Muslim terrorists, a tongue lashing by moronic progressives throughout the world is going to make this 7 years almost unbearable. Well, it will be unbearable. 2 out of every 3 Jews is going to die in this during this period. Probably a much higher percentage of humankind as nations war with other nations, with the catalyst being as Neville Chamberlain sacrificed the high ground of Czechoslovakia, which was not his to give, to satiate the bloodlust of the Nazis, and which became the catalyst for the inception of World War II, because it emboldened Adolf Hitler and gave him the wherewithal to control the war machine that he was building for Germany. That immediately after Neville Chamberlain sacrificed the high ground of Czechoslovakia, we were in World War II. This time it will be Donald Trump. The prophecies are clear that it is America that is most responsible for sacrificing Israel. We're told that Israel will be narrowed at the waist, that as a result she will be indefensible, and this means that Israel is going to be forced into the 2-state dissolution, and as a consequence of that, Israel will be indefensible. Muslims will attack, this time by the millions as opposed to by the thousands, and all hell's going to break loose as various people position on one side or the other of this onslaught. Yahweh wants his family removed from that. And so this is part of the reason for the Shabuah harvest. But also Yahweh wants to make certain that there are covenant family members who are able to return when he wants to return on Yom Kippurim 7 years later, and this makes that certain. But it's also an important day because there will be a number of covenant members, myself included, who are going to return. And that mission is going to be exceedingly difficult because our mission will be to continue to reacquaint Yehudim, who are very stubborn people, that they were wrong 3,000 years ago when they told Yahweh to shut up and go away, that they were wrong when they erased his name, and that they were wrong when they came up with not one, but 2 false messiahs, and never recognized what David had done for them on Pesach, Matzah, and Bakodim. And so we will come back recharged because this whole experience will be enormously uplifting and invigorating, enabling us to do this important mission more effectively. So all of these are aspects of Shabuah, and it's the upcoming harvest. And it's also important for you to know that Yahweh chose a final Zeroah. There are 3 Zeroah. I'm the final of the 3. My job is to cultivate to this harvest. So I'm here trying to share this information with you so that there will be more quality individuals who know this opportunity exists and will choose to capitalize upon it. My job is as a messenger in this regard. I'm here to convey this information to you, to point the way back home, and to let you know how to participate. That is Shabuah. Teruah is the last of the three harvests. Teruah transpires in year 6,000 Yah and 2033. It's the first of the three Moed Mikre that will be fulfilled in that year. On the onset in the evening of Friday evening of September 23rd of 2033 will be the final gleaning of God's people for those who will now be energy-based and immortal, and they will be brought to heaven 10 days before Yahweh's return, joining those who were part of the Shabuah harvest. And they'll be very unique because these will now be energy-based spiritual beings that can transition into mortal physical beings as they wish. E equals MC2 is MC squared explains how this happens. But they're covenant family members who have received this 10-fold times 10 times 2 or squared benefit. The following day will be most extraordinary days in human history, probably the most extraordinary day in human history up to that point, although it will be eclipsed shortly thereafter by Yom Kippurim. On this day, there will be a confrontation between myself and the corporeal manifestation of Hasatan on the Temple Mount. And I will have the seven Ruach spirits who make this mission possible, who enable me, inspire me, who have and cause these books to be written and cause this Yahweh blog to be broadcast to you, make this all possible. I will ask them to depart. I will have the Malach who have protected me all of this time stand down, and the corporeal manifestation of Hasatan is going to beat me to death. And you might say, well, why would you do that? The same reason the Dode did 2,000 years earlier as the Pesach Gael. I'm going to do it as the Adamah Parah. It is how Yahweh intends to perfect, to cleanse his people, so that the mortal remnant of Yisrael, who is there at this time, who has survived the time of Jacob's trouble, are prepared to meet with Yahweh. It'll be the first time they will have heard Yahweh's voice since they told him to go away and shut up 3,400 years ago. And orchestrating all of this will be Elia, the great orator, who was responsible for exactly this same mission, 40 Yobel, 888 years previously, where he took on the political and religious establishment of Yisrael, making all of this possible. He will recreate that speech and that moment, this time over the sacrifice of the Adamah Parah, which, as before, God will ignite the flames beneath the Adamah Parah, and he will at the same time unleash this torrent of water that will roar off of and dance off of the sides of the Temple Mount, which has already been cleansed and purged of the grotesque Islamic scars, the Dome of the Rock and Al-Aqsa Mosque. And the combination of those searing flames and cleansing waters with the ash of the Adamah Parah will cleanse this adulterous woman that has been Yisrael all of these years, so that she is prepared to be betrothed to Dode David upon his return on Yom Kippurim. And Yom Kippurim is the day of reconciliations. It is the 6 of 7 steps that we take to God. It is the day that Yahweh and Dode return. It is the great homecoming, the great family reunion, and it is my job at this point, has been my job for the last 23 years, to tell you about this, to prepare you for it, to make this homecoming as positive and as celebratory as is absolutely possible for Yahweh and for the Messiah, Dowd. Those who benefit from all of this will then be prepared for the seventh step home, which is on Sukkah, where the earth is returned to the conditions experienced during Eden. And this mortal remnant, along with those who were part of the Shavuot and Teruah harvest, will all have this opportunity to camp out with Yahweh here on earth for at least 1,000 years. That is God's plan. That is what he wants you to know as it relates to how you can choose to live forever as part of his family in his home. So, to bring all this to you brings us back to the Torah, where we read, "Then Moshe alone approached and was personally present himself, moving towards Yahweh. But the others," he's speaking of the 70 plus the other specifically named individuals, "they did not approach and they were not present. So therefore, the people, they did not ascend with him." The reason this is important is because there's only one Torah. The rabbis lie when they say there are two. They lie when they say there's an oral law. They lie when they call their rabbinical arguments in the Talmud Torah. There's only one Torah. It is the one that Yahweh dictated the opening books to Moshe, and then Moshe and the children of Israel both lived and heard from Yahweh as they would go through the next three books, and then in the final, the fifth book, what we have is Yahweh speaking directly through Moshe, using his mouth, if you will, just as he had promised, creating Devarim. That is the Torah. So Moshe had been the conduit of the Word of God since their initial meeting. And it was, of course, at this same mountain. Having proved worthy of his calling, he was given a role that would continue. And Yahweh made it exceedingly clear that he did not speak through multiple people. He had his sister and his brother try to say, "But we also speak for God." And God said, "Hell no, you don't. I'm only speaking now through Moshe." And he says, "You will know throughout the future, when I choose to speak through someone, I'll make it abundantly clear that I have chosen them." And if you want to say that you also speak for God, you need to know the consequence, which is excommunication from God's family, and you become exceedingly diseased, and God tells you, "Shut up." So Moshe had tried Yahweh's words against the most powerful man in the world, and they prevailed. He spoke to Pharaoh, and Pharaoh eventually relented. Moshe fully embraced and acted upon Pesach Matzah B'Kodim at the beginning of the Exodus. Pesach is what opened the door to life. Matzah is what enabled the children of Israel to come clean of the religion and the politics and the militarism and the caste economic system of Mitzrayim, the crucibles of human religious and political oppression, to remove themselves from that, so that they became B'Kodim, the firstborn children of Yahweh. And symbolically, B'Kodim is celebrated as Yahweh opened up the sea and they walked through the waters birthing forth them becoming the children of God. 7 weeks thereafter, he was prepared to be enriched, to be enlightened, and to be empowered yet again through Shavuot, which provides the ability to come home. The others were not nearly as prepared, and so Yahweh spoke to Moshe alone. So Moshe returned, and he recounted a written record, a shofar. He provided an accurate accounting of, by way of an inscribed scroll for the people, all of the words of Yahweh and all of the means to exercise good judgment and resolve disputes. all Yahweh would have dictated to Moshe at the beginning was Barishith. So Yahweh didn't hand Moshe a scroll of the Torah. He gave him Barishith. And the reason for Barishith is it was important for Yahweh to explain how he created the universe and authored life. And that is a marvelous story, which we've done a series of programs already to explain. Further, Yahweh wanted to provide a narrative of the flood and why it occurred and why Noah was chosen to captain the ark and to save the family that was living in the area where this flood occurred. And then as we move forward, we find that the narrative becomes that of the covenant, and we have more than a dozen chapters devoted in Barishith just to this narrative of how Abraham and Sarah came to embody Yahweh's intent with the covenant relationship, giving birth to Yishak, laughter, and then to Jacob, and how Jacob would then conceive the children of Israel. This is all that transpired long before Moshe, and therefore was provided as a narrative to Moshe, not only for the benefit of the children of Israel, but also for our benefit, and mostly for our benefit. So we would know how to participate in the covenant, so that we would know the conditions and the benefits of that covenant relationship, so that we would know our purpose in life, so that we would have this beautiful story of what transpired in the Garden of Great Joy, Gan Eden, because that is Yahweh's idea of perfection. And it's why he's converting the earth back into those conditions, inviting us to return. So all of this was provided as the means to exercise good judgment and resolve disputes. Ha-misvat. A misvat is been corrupted into a whole series of religious edicts by the religious rabbinic establishment. But it's a very simple term. Like so many Hebrew words, it begins with the interrogatory, my. And the interrogatory means that we should ponder the implications of what follows. What follows is shafat. Shafat means to exercise good judgment, to be judgmental, to discern right from wrong, to make rational decisions, to reach sound verdicts, to achieve justice, to be right, to be fair, to resolve conflicts. And so Shavat, or Mishvat, which be the means to exercise good judgment and resolve disputes. This is from Shemoth Names, Exodus 24:3. So upon his return from the mountain of God, Moshe brought us an accurate written record of what Yahweh revealed to him. By having done so, it is as if we were there. In fact, we have every advantage and more than Moshe had, and certainly more than the children of Israel had, because we can experience all of this with them. We know exactly what was discussed. We know where it was discussed. We know when it was discussed. We know all of the ongoing implications based upon the way that it was discussed. So this puts us in an exceedingly favorable position. We can also turn to the prophets and know what happened that turned out to be beneficial and counterproductive as the children of Israel struggled to continue to show their favoritism for this relationship God intended, and chose instead to aggravate God with their religion. So I can tell you there's probably nothing better than us being given this written transcript, if you will, of what was said. So other than to hear the tenor of Yahweh's voice, which I'm sure was a marvelous experience for Moshe, it is all projected through this implement from the realm of 7D into our 3 dimensions. So I would have to tell you that listening is, well, once upon a time, I would have told you that listening was inferior to being able to read, which is why Moshe wrote it all down. I'm beginning to change my tune in that regard. And it's really because of what has transpired recently. Um, the written record was always the most effective way to communicate anything because it was the only way to maintain uh, a message accurately over time. And it is so much more precise as you construct sentences, choose the perfect word, refine it through your mind, and convey it in such a way that people can go back to it, read it at their pace, validate it, tie it together with other things you've said, and hold you accountable to what you have written. Uh, but most recently, the spoken word with uh, now the capabilities that are provided through Facebook, which we live stream this program, X, which we also live stream this program, YouTube, which we do the same. Soon we hope to be able to live stream it through Rumble. Odyssey is another place that this program is live streamed. You get to hear this message within seconds of the time that I am sharing it. In fact, I have a television set on the other side of this camera that is attuned to this particular broadcast. Probably something I won't do again because it has a 5-second delay. And so I'm looking here at you through this camera and I'm seeing me as I was 5 seconds ago. But nonetheless, you were given essentially instant access to what we are sharing with you. And at any moment, you can choose to pause, think about what was said, validate something that you heard, and play it again. And you can play it as many times as you want. And it's going to be exactly the same message 5 years from now as it is today. So there now is a capability of validating the spoken word. Now, for the first time, with these streamed videos and the internet's capability, you actually get more than just the tone of the voice, which is so much more powerful than just black and white images on a page, where we can convey passion and enthusiasm and conviction to you. But you can also see the expressions in the person delivering this message's face, particularly when this is a live stream. It's just you, me, and this camera as the conduit to bring us together. So now you can also see the expressions, and you can see the gestures. You can very quickly ascertain if this individual is making this up as he goes along, or genuinely knows this and can tell the same story 100 times and always share it with the such that it's consistent and with conviction. This is something that these live streams enable that the written word does not. So at this point, I think that while Moshe's experience listening to Yahweh, I'm sure was far more enjoyable than what I'm able to replicate, this still enables you to do it without having to climb up that through a trek through the desert to found Mount Choreb, and then climb to the top where God currently isn't. This program now comes directly to you in your home, on your phone, on your tablet, on your laptop, on your computer, on your television set. So we are a whole lot more convenient for you. So while the written word provides us with the opportunity to study the text at the most opportune pace and to pause whenever we wished to question something or contemplate its implications, well, now so do these video blogs, which is why Yahweh said, "You've written enough books, Greg. I want you to start speaking to my people." So the written word of God enables the truth to be maintained and projected, and therefore to prove its validity through prophecy. And I'm sure that had this medium existed all the way back then, God would have had a Yahweh blog where he would be the one sitting across from this camera and speaking to you, but it didn't exist back then. And of course, back then, the children of Israel told Yahweh, "We don't want to see you again. We don't want to hear from you again." So someone was needed to reacquaint you with your God and prepare you so that you would be able to hear his voice again and meet with him again and be able to do so in the near future. Now, of prominent importance to us in this particular statement is the issue of shofar, to accurately and carefully record in writing, providing a precise accounting. God purposefully selected shofar and combined it with dabadi, words, to reveal that the Torah isn't hearsay. There is no oral law here. It is admissible evidence as a contemporaneous transcription of Yahweh's testimony. Now, that is sensational news. Of course, it impugns the credibility of rabbinic Judaism, and by the Torah being written, a written transcript of Yahweh's testimony, and the fact that the Torah and the Christian New Testament are at odds with each other on every page in every possible way, it destroys the world's most popular religion too. But for those of us who want to know Yahweh as he really is, for those of us who want proof that Yahweh exists and that he inspired these words that we're considering, there is nothing better than having a contemporaneous transcription of his testimony to Moses. And it is complete. He said that every word was conveyed. He transcribed them and he pronounced them all. And all means all, that's all means. Now, since God is ascribing a series of a great sense of precision to his testimony, it is reasonable that we do the same. We ought not feel at liberty to change his words to those we prefer just because men and women have become accustomed to hearing religious terms. For example, since Yahweh wrote set apart, we shouldn't replace his concept with the religious notion of holy, particularly since chole in Hebrew means diseased. Since God wrote Yahweh, those who replace his name with the Lord are copy editors rather than translators. Since Torah means teaching, changing it to law is both errant and dishonest. Equally telling, shofar, accurately accounting, is identical in its letter composition to shephar, which means written communication, a document, a book, or a scroll. That is not to say, however, that the entire Torah was transcribed at this juncture, but only that everything God had said thus far was accurately recorded in writing. There would be yet another, more comprehensive installment over time, as Israel literally lived through the conveyance of Yahweh's Torah. What's also intriguing here is the use of mishpat, almost as a conclusion or a summary, explaining why all this was revealed. Had the sentence concluded with all the words of Yahweh, it would have been sufficient to convey that Moshe had been a reliable scribe. But there is more to teaching than words, more to guidance than the letters on a page. It is how we process the information that we are given that matters. And in this regard, mishpat matters most. It is comprised, as I shared with you, of which is an interrogatory in Hebrew. It means to ponder the implications of something, to use your mind to question things. And shafat, which is to judge, to decide. It indicates that there is a recommended way to think about what God has revealed. Expressly, we are to exercise good judgment, and we should focus on the means that we have been provided to resolve disputes, so that we are all on the same page. Mishpat tells us four things. First, Yahweh is our judge, and that his Torah teaching and guidance is the constitution of his covenant. This means that Yahweh is the source of our vindication, as well as potential condemnation to the exclusion of rabbis, priests, or any other human institution. The second reason for adding mishpat is that it provides an insight into that which Yahweh would ultimately condemn. Its negative connotation would serve as a warning to the Jewish religion and to those who would try to usurp God's authority. Mishpat has been religiously transliterated as Misvat. Uh, then, 2,500 years after Moshe inscribed the Torah's Misvat, Moshe Muhammadi's developed 613 mitzvot, or rabbinical regulations, customs, and traditions, which now serve as the foundation of Judaism. Most of these were concocted by the Rambam, an acronym based upon Rabbi Moshe ben Maimon, and then included in what's called halakha, meaning to walk, but known as Jewish religious law. This misguided rabbi claimed that there were 613 regulations listed in the Torah, something which is not true. As affirmation, he claimed that his list was equal to the number of seeds in a pomegranate and the number of bones within the human body. Neither of those things are true either. He, by the way, is the one who gave you the calendar, which is off by well over 200 years. But this is true. Rabbi Maimonides was born in Cordoba, Spain. Well, I'll tell you what. I will share this with you on the next episode of the Yahweh blog, as we're now past the hour mark, and we have a lot to say about this ultimate weasel, Rabbi Maimonides, and all the lies that he told that have led so many Jews astray for so long. So we'll cover that in episode 22 of Qatsyr Harvest. As for this episode, I thank you for listening. I am Craig Wynn, and this has been the Yahweh blog.